What is up, guys? Man, I appreciate all y'all tuning in on Tuesday night, man. You already know what time it is. It's the mailbag. Man, what's up underscore, man? Happy for you tuning in, my guy. But man, we got a lot to cover this episode, and we got a lot to get through so we can get to y'all's questions at the end of the show and throughout the show. But man, first off, I just want to say appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. Make sure turn on those post notifications, all that good stuff, man. But the topics tonight, we're going to start out with snubs of the postseason all SWAC awards. All the American teams were announced. The player of the year was announced, and offensive and defensive newcomer freshman of the year. We're going to get into all that, and I'm going to give y'all three players that I thought were snubbed in terms of where they were on the awards, and also one player who didn't even make the awards list that I thought was an absolute crime. Also, on top of that, man, we have so much college football coaching movement right now. I'm going to break it all down for you. You go through the jobs that are currently open, give y'all the latest, man. I've reached out to everybody I know at all these schools to get the latest info for you guys. So that way y'all can take it and do what y'all do with it, man. But we're going to go through all the openings. We're going to go through the recent hires as well, give y'all my quick thoughts. We had so much breaking news, man, between LSU and Florida these past 2 days, on top of Lincoln Riley going to USC, man. It's been a crazy week. And then on top of that, I know a lot of SWAC fans and FCS fans are interested in the transfer portal this year. So I went through, got the top 10 guys in the transfer portal, and also got some got some info on them about where they might go and things like that, especially with all the transfers and coaching changes. I'm sure it might change by tomorrow, but as of tonight, I got the top guys in the portal for y'all, and we'll break them down here. And then, of course, at the end of the show, man, y'all know y'all can comment throughout the show, y'all's questions, and it's off topic tonight, man. Anywhere y'all want to take the show, we'll go with it. But we'll start with the SWAC postseason awards, man. And I know that anybody who's been on any other SWAC channel has probably already seen the awards, but just to kind of recap, man, we had Akil Glass win Offensive Player of the Year. Isaiah Land got Defensive Player of the Year. James Houston, newcomer, Freshman of the Year, Shador, and of course, Coach of the Year is none other than Coach Deion Sanders, who I don't even think it was really a competition for the Coach of the Year award, just between us here, man. But in terms of the All-American teams, I won't go through them all, but y'all already know what the big debate is, man. Everyone on every single channel across YouTube has debated whether it should have been Akil or Shador for the first team. The first team all SWAC quarterback. It's no surprise to me that Akil got it due to him winning the Offensive Player of the Year award. Usually whoever wins that Offensive Player of the Year award is going to be on first team. So as soon as you saw that, you should have known that Akil was probably going to be first team. And just to offer some perspective for some people who might not might not watch as much college football as some other people, man. Usually if there's a close race like there was between a Shador and Akil Glass, a lot of people never mention this, but a lot of the times they will give the nod to the upperclassmen. In the voters' mind, they give the nod to the upperclassmen due to the fact this is last year, and in their mind, the younger player could win it another year. So I think that's what happened here, man. Akil and Shador were neck and neck. I think you could go through the channels on YouTube and everyone might give you one or the other. But I think that Akil got the nod due to the fact he was a senior and due to the fact that statistically he put up some crazy numbers. And as you guys know, this is a statistics first award, not necessarily the best player on the best team like it is in some conferences. But I think you can make a good argument for both. I've made an argument on my channel and on the roundtable that I thought Shador should have got it. But I overall can see why you would give it to Akil in his senior year with the stats that he put up. So we won't get into that whole debate and slap the hornet's nest on that one. But the one thing I did want to talk about in terms of my snubs, I thought there was one name on the second team All-American list that should have been on the first team. And that was Irshad Davis for Alabama State, the safety for the Hornets, man. He was second team All-SWAC DB. I personally thought he should be first team, man. I think when you look at the top four DBs in the conference this year, I know that he played on Alabama State. I know that personally they didn't have a very good year, but Irshad Davis, man, was the soul and heart of that team. And he was he was easily the best defensive player on that defense. And I think week in and week out, he proved that he was a first team All-American, in my opinion. And I thought that he got a little bit snubbed. I mean, 65 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. When you look at where he ranked in the SWAC, and this is terms of any position, man, in the entire conference, he was top 13 in tackles, top 10 as a safety, guys, in sacks, and also was tied 4th in the SWAC for interceptions this year. So for me, that is qualified to be a first team All American in the secondary. And on top of that, when you look at what Earshot Davis did on his own team, guys, he led his own team in tackles as a safety by over 20 total tackles this year. He led the team in INTs, was the only person to have over 2. And on his own team, he was top 4 in tackles for losses and sacks this year. And sometimes, man, he was the only bright spot for this Hornet defense. He consistently played in the box. He could play that deep safety spot. He could step out into the slot corner role. And for me, I think him being the leader of this defense and him showing that he can be everywhere at once, man, for me, I thought he deserved it. Yeah, Booker, I believe he switched his number to number 0. I believe he was number 6 the past 2 years, but I believe he changed his number to number 0 this season. But yeah. Let me get some of these comments before I get to my next one, man. What's up, Londo, man? Appreciate you tuning in. He said, talk about that transfer portal. Rouse said, Glass is the better player. Man, shout out to Manny for tuning in as well. Burnett said, how many garbage yards did Glass have after they had lost and teams were in prevent defense? Yeah, I mean, I agree. There were a lot of games, Burnett, that the yardage, like you said, wasn't meaningful. And I think you do have that case. And I think and like I said on my argument, man, and we'll leave it at this, is I thought that as bad as both O lines were, I thought Akil had more help in terms of the wide receivers consistently. Akil's wide receiving core was consistently healthy in there. When you look at what happened with Jackson State, you saw Warren Newman get banged up. You saw Josh Lanier get banged up. You saw Malachi Wyman not even play till the Alabama A&M game. Quay Davis was out. Rucker wasn't necessarily consistently in that offense. So I thought that really separated for me Shador and Akil. I thought the O-lines were both atrocious, but also you got to look at Gary Quarles really helping out Akil as well on the ground. But if you're going just by straight statistics without digging in, Burnett, I think that's why a lot of people are saying Akil got it, but I'm not going to argue either way. They both deserve their awards, and we'll leave it at that. Underscore, so I wonder how those new JSU locker rooms are going to look. Listen, Coach Sanders isn't going to let any like lack of quality escape him. Underscore, so I'm imagining they'd be very nice. T said, "What's my boy Blue Man?" I appreciate it, T. But the snub that wasn't on a list, and I know that some people who maybe just followed their favorite team or maybe didn't really dig in and don't watch a lot of film on SWAC football might not know this guy's name. He's a freshman. I thought Andre Fuller for UAPB, a defensive back, should have at least been second team All-American. And now I know what you're saying, man. I know what y'all are going to say. You're like, how did a UAPB defensive back get on your radar? Well, listen, man, he had 3 picks this year, 14 pass breakups, 3 tackles for loss, over 30 tackles this year. He led the SWAC in pass breakups. He was top 5 in interceptions, number 1 in the SWAC in plays on the ball this season. And he was only a freshman. And I really think the reason he didn't get put on any All-American list is 1, his age. He was, like I said, he was a freshman. And 2, I think the defense he played on really got him overlooked. I don't think the people who voted really broke down and said, okay, yeah, this secondary might be ranked, horribly, but let's pick, one of the top players from that defense to look at. And I thought Fuller, I love Jalen Thigpen. I thought Fuller had the best season in terms of DBs on that defense. He got targeted a lot early, but 14 pass breakups, 3 picks, and he played well down the stretch. So for me, I thought he should at least be on SWAC second team, and his stats are better than probably three of the 4 guys on the second team All-American list. Only one probably not as Earshot. But, I mean, I thought he should absolutely be on a SWAC All-American list. And, listen, Andre Fuller next year is going to be a name that you guys are going to have to know. Now, listen, Mr. Campbell said he's here to monitor any FAMU slander. Well, buckle up because this is where the FAMU fans I know are going to be mad at me. But I'm going to have to say it. For me, I know statistically he was higher, but I would have switched James Houston and Isaiah Land. I would have put Isaiah Land as newcomer of the year and James Houston as defensive player of the year. And I'll give you my argument because I already know the statistic argument's coming because Isaiah Land did have technically better statistics. But for me, I thought James Houston made more of an impact game by game. And what I mean by that is, I don't think a lot of people had to scheme for Isaiah Land like they do with James Houston. And I really think James Houston was more dominant this season. And I think James Houston performed consistently better than Isaiah Land. Isaiah Land has some huge games, 5 sacks in the South Carolina State game. He had multiple 2-3 sack games down the stretch. But early on in the season, I don't think it was consistent enough for Isaiah Land to be above James Houston. And also, I think you saw it this weekend, man. If the voting happened after this weekend, I think James Houston would have taken it. But Isaiah Land was neutralized in the biggest game of the year for FAMU, and I think for me at least that has to count for something. And I'm not mad Isaiah Land got it. I don't think it was a big thing, and that's why I'm not going to nitpick it too much. But for me, in my vote, where it would have gone, I would have probably said James Houston is the defensive player of the year. And I would have absolutely put Isaiah Land as the newcomer of the year since FAMU just entered the SWAC, of course. But I mean, when you look at James Houston, I thought he was more dominant, and I thought he was a bigger, more consistent force throughout the season, and that's why I would put James Houston slightly above Isaiah Land. And I know that's going to rub some people the wrong way, but I don't think overall, I didn't hate the voting like a lot of people did. I talked to a Jackson State player's parent on the phone yesterday, and we kind of went over position by position what everyone thought. And for me, I didn't hate it as much as some people did. I thought there were a few, ticky tack things you could pick, but I thought overall, compared to what the preseason list was and all the gripes everyone had about that, I thought it was fairly consistent and fairly. I thought they did it fair, and I didn't see any blatant, in terms of, oh my God, how in the world did that not happen? I also didn't like Keontae Hampton on the second team, but I thought he should be first team. But they also had to put Isaiah Land as a linebacker due to his edge position. I understand why they did it, but for me, I think they would have been better suited to put him on the D line and allow Keontae Hampton to be on that linebacker spot for the first round. Let me catch up to these comments real quick. Underscore said we've seen James Houston do the same stuff he does now at Florida, so at least that we know that James Houston can do it against other than the SWAC teams. I agree. T said Isaiah Land is athletic but too light for a defensive end. I agree. I think for the pros, I talked to someone who's connected with the scout, and the scout told them Isaiah Land needs to put on about 25 to maybe 30 pounds of muscle to really be a force at the defensive end spot. But he absolutely could drop back into that linebacker role with his athleticism, T. So I think that as long as he can put on weight over next year, so I think this offseason and next year through next offseason are going to be very important for Land if he wants a future in the NFL on that defensive line. Booker said Valley and Alabama A&M played JSU and FAMU back-to-back. That is tough. James Houston was the SWAC Lawrence Taylor this year. Listen, I think Booker, for me, and I know this might sound crazy to some people, so some conferences have like overall player of the year, and then they'll break it down even further. I think personally, if you just had an overall SWAC player of the year and you didn't break it down offensive and defensive, I personally believe James Houston was the player of the year in the SWAC over any offensive player. I mean, anything. I think if you had one SWAC player of the year, I still think you put James Houston. And then I agree, if he played against ULM, what could have his stats been? So I agree with you on that one. Isaiah Land probably better as a weak side linebacker. Stephen Kim, I was sitting here by Bama State to write down names. Well, listen, Lawrence, tell them I'm on their side that Irshad Davis should absolutely be on the SWAC All-American list or the first team, man. So write that name down. Irshad Davis should have been on it. His name rung out every game. Like to see James Houston to get some better O-linemen. No doubt in my mind that James Houston could beat high talented O-line one-on-one if he's beating triple teams in the SWAC. I agree. Southern played the hardest schedule in the SWAC. They played all the top teams except Alabama A&M. I agree, Mr. Campbell. I think Southern had the number one toughest schedule in the SWAC. They played everybody. And then on top of that, you look at, I believe they played FAMU, Jackson State, and Prairie View in like 3 back-to-back games. And then the Alcorn game really wasn't that far removed from that stretch either. So I think they had by far the toughest stretch. The only argument you can make about Southern is that they got a lot of those games at home, but to play, they probably played like 5 of the 6 top teams in the SWAC, man, and they were all right there together. And then on top of that, they also had to go play McNeese and things like that. Underscore and James Houston didn't play against ULM, got ejected for targeting. Yeah, I mean, go back and watch the game. He was so. I think the distinction that Booker's trying to make is that before he got ejected, he was playing well, and then he got ejected actually on a hit on the quarterback. So like, I'm pretty sure he was playing outstanding and then got ejected. But we'll get back to that, guys. You can start submitting your questions too, and I'll get to those. But the other topic, man, we got to get to is the latest on head coaching vacancies in college football. I know Alabama State just hired, Eddie Robinson Jr. We're not going to listen. Enough jokes have been made. Enough opinions have been given. I think everyone knows where I stand. I called into Script Show and gave my opinion on it, and I still think it's an atrocious hire. Let's just keep it at that. But some of the current vacancies now through college football, man. Of course, you have the Southern and Grambling jobs. I've heard the Southern job is pretty much filled, man. I heard it's Dooley or bust, pretty much. I mean, I've heard it's pretty much Dooley, and it's going to be announced after the SWAC championship from the people I've talked to. Now, Grambling, no word. Listen, if you got a Grambling source, hit me up on Instagram, hit me up on Twitter, comment below, let me know, because I have no Grambling sources, so I can't give y'all any information on Grambling whatsoever. Now, some of the other jobs that are open, we're just gonna like hit these real fast so we can move on. We have Akron open. They're pretty much, based from the guy I talked to, they're pretty much in contract talks with Joe Moorhead. That's the former Mississippi State head coach. He's the current Oregon offensive coordinator. So it looks like Joe Moorhead is headed to Akron. Now, Duke, on the other hand, just became open. David Cutcliffe is out at Duke. The top 3 candidates right now for Duke are Mike Houston, that's the Eastern Carolina head coach, Mike Elko, the Texas A&M defensive coordinator, and then also Jeff Monken, the Army head coach, have been linked to that Duke job in the ACC. They're going to have to try to find something to do there because Duke has went really downhill over these past few years. Now, Florida International is also open. There's really only been 2 candidates linked to that job right now. Frank Ponce, who's the Appalachian State offensive coordinator, has helped build Appalachian State's offense into one of the best in the Sun Belt. And then Randy Shannon, who's a current Florida State analyst. Y'all might remember him from those great U teams back in the day down in Miami. But Randy Shannon and Frank Ponce are the 2 names that you're going to hear associated with Florida International. Now, as of yesterday, Fresno State is open. Their head coach is headed off to Washington. And there's been 3 names mentioned there. Jeff Tetford, that's the former Fresno State head coach, 2017 to 2019. He had health conditions, had to step down back in 2019, but they're talking about bringing him back to lead that program. Also, Troy Taylor, all our FCS fans in here. Troy Taylor is the Sac State head coach. They have Sac State 4th right now in the FCS playoffs. They got seeded 4th. They just came off winning the Big Sky. Troy Taylor has been linked to this job a lot. He's built Sac State into a powerhouse at one of the powerhouses at the FCS level. So look for Troy Taylor to get a big interview. And then also Tim Skipper, who's the Central Michigan linebacker coach and assistant head coach. He's a former Fresno State player and assistant. If things fall through with Tetford or Taylor, Tim Skipper seems to be the backup plan for Fresno State moving forward. Now, Louisiana Lafayette, guys, you already know Billy Napier's off to Florida. There's been some big names announced with this one. They've talked about Ron Roberts and Jeff Levy. Ron Roberts is the right-hand man for Dave Aranda at Baylor, the defensive coordinator. And, of course, Jeff Levy is the Ole Miss offensive coordinator, has been working hand-in-hand with Lane Kiffin to turn Matt Corral into almost a consensus #1 draft pick at the quarterback spot. Also, Patrick Toney, Louisiana Lafayette D coordinator, has been mentioned with the job. Also, Jabbar Jalouk, the running back head coach, who I've said Southern should hire, has also been mentioned as a potential candidate to be promoted to the head coaching job at Louisiana Lafayette. Notre Dame, man, you already know what Notre Dame has, man. Brian Kelly dips out in the middle of the night, doesn't even text his team till this morning. He has an 11-minute meeting with them. Disrespectful as can be, but we'll leave that where it is. But right now, Notre Dame, there's a lot of pressure right now to elevate Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame D coordinator, former Cincinnati D coordinator, to the head coaching spot. He's the guy in the thumbnail that I posted, and I've been a giant Marcus Freeman fan. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in college football. I think Notre Dame upgrading Marcus Freeman to their head coach would be a great hire. Also, Matt Campbell, Iowa State head coach, and Luke Fickell, Cincinnati head coach, have both been linked to the job. Luke Fickell vehemently denied it, but we saw with Lincoln Riley that means nothing, nowadays. But Oklahoma's the other big opening, man. Bob Stoops is the interim head coach, and a lot of sources out of Norman have said that the former Oklahoma head coach is going to be a candidate, depending on how he finishes out his bowl game and what happens in the offseason. Also, there's a lot of reports tonight, just kind of breaking news on the show. I talked to my Oklahoma guy. There's a lot of news coming out of Norman that Brent Venables, Clemson D coordinator, is going to take an interview and is their top option if they don't hire Bob Stoops again. So look out for Brent Venables to Oklahoma potentially in the coming days. If Venables decides to finally move on from Clemson, it would be a giant hire. And finally, somebody would someone would finally get Venables away from Sweeney. So that'd be a huge hire there. Also, Temple and Troy are the last two, group of 5 jobs open right now. Temple, Kenny Burns, Minnesota running back coach, and Brian Hartline, Ohio State wide receiving coach, are the top 2 candidates right now for Temple. And then Troy just came open not too long ago. Dell McGee, Georgia running back coach, and John Summerall, Kentucky linebacking coach, are the 2 top favorites for Troy. And then, of course, as we know, as we get into hires, Rich Rodriguez headed to Jacksonville State as they move up from the FCS level I believe it's next year, if I'm not mistaken. Lawrence, I'm pretty sure it's next year. If not, it's the year after. But yeah, Rich Rod headed Jacksonville State, and apparently Jacksonville State even potentially hired Kevin Steele as the defensive coordinator for that job as well. So Jacksonville State potentially could have Kevin Steele as their D coordinator and Rich Rod as the head coach. So big hires there for Jacksonville State as they look to make some noise at the FBS level. Now, recent hires, I won't go into too many of these. I've already dropped episodes on them, but LSU hired Brian Kelly last night, Notre Dame head coach. Florida goes with Napier from Louisiana Lafayette. Also, one I didn't talk about earlier, Georgia Southern hired Clay Helton, former USC head coach. Louisiana Tech goes with Sonny Cumbie, Texas Tech interim head coach, who took over for Matt Wells this year. Also, Rhett Lashley takes over the SMU job, former Miami offensive coordinator and Auburn offensive coordinator. Sonny Dykes takes the TCU job, as many people predicted, former SMU coach. Washington hires Kalen DeBoer today from Fresno State. Washington State's going to promote Jake Dickert, their interim head coach, to the head coaching job. And then the latest news, Brent Pry, Penn State D coordinator, takes the Virginia Tech job right now. And so that's the latest on the coaching search, man. Did a bunch of research, reached out to people to get those candidates for y'all. So that way y'all can be better informed on like what's going on with the coaching searches. But I missed a bunch of comments doing that. Heard LSU Coach Kelly got some ridiculous salary. So I talked to my LSU guy this morning. Supposedly the contract is going to be 10 years worth, maybe they said roughly $12 million a year with incentives. So be 10 years, probably 120 million, about $12 million a year for Brian Kelly at LSU is the latest. Now, I don't know what the incentives are or anything like that, but it's probably going to break down to 10 years, over $100 million for Kelly to come down to LSU and coach the Tigers, man. He said that's a good look for Akron. Mr. Lincoln did OU wrong for real. That was crazy when he did that football team. Listen, man, they didn't ask the right questions, Lionel. He said, I'm not going to be the head coach of LSU, and he technically wasn't lying. They didn't even see USC coming around the corner, man. Because the FCS means nothing. North Dakota State had O-linemen that got drafted. Hell, a lot of coaches do not even meet with their players when they leave, man. Mr. Campbell, they do the players so dirty, man. I mean, the fact that so Mr. Campbell, I know I talked about it a bit on our episode, but he didn't even tell his assistants. He ghosted his assistants, guys. His assistants were calling him when the announcement came and he wasn't answering. One assistant reported to ESPN that he was walking out of a recruit's house when the news broke. And he said that it made him look like an a-hole because he literally just sold the vision to this recruit. And then Brian Kelly leaves that night, and the assistants didn't even know. He messages them in Teamworks, which is kind of like Canvas if you've been in college recently, or like a message board for your classes, and the football team will have one. And he pretty much met with them for 11 minutes today and dipped. And guys, I don't promote a lot of other podcasts, but go check out the Volume Sports on YouTube. They have the Garage podcast with Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame player, and there's 3 other Notre Dame players that have that podcast with him. They got the news live on their podcast and broke it. It's a great insight on how players react, and it's really cool to see their unfiltered takes right when it happens. So go check out the Volume Sports for that episode. Booker said that's foul. The SWAC should have gone with your choices at Bluebloods. Listen, man, I'm not a guru, but listen, I think Southern is way better off hiring Jaluk than they are a retread like Dooley. And I just think, man, Sonic Boom, we've had this conversation on this show before. If the SWAC is serious about becoming the premier FCS conference, hiring real estate agents with no coaching experience is not going to cut it. And I'm going to stand by that. And I know some Alabama State fans aren't going to be happy with that. And he might be successful, but it's a risk that you probably don't want to take. And you have to up the level of hires that you have if you want to become the face of the FCS, like I know a lot of SWAC fans want to do. And if you even want to move to FBS in the future, which I know some SWAC fans want to as well. When is Manny Diaz going to be fired? I'm on that Lane trade. So Jay Stokes, I have some really bad news, man. Listen, I have it on good authority, and everything could change daily, but I have it on some good authority that they're not firing Manny Diaz this year, man. Like everything I've heard says they're going to give him one more year. They don't want to get into the craziest coaching carousel. They've seen LSU, Florida, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, USC, Washington. All these big schools have openings. I think Manny Diaz and Tyler Van Dyke is the criminal, man. Jay Stokes, be mad at Tyler Van Dyke. I think him winning those series of ranked games for Miami down the stretch probably saved Manny Diaz's job for one more year. So I think you're stuck with Manny Diaz for one more year, man, at least. And if not, I know there's a lot of hype between Mario Cristobal and Lane Kiffin coming down to Miami. I think either one of those hires are going to be great in terms of the Hurricanes. But Mario Cristobal, to get a former player who has built Oregon into one of the top programs in the country, would be huge, and a Nick Saban disciple as well. He said Temple needs better candidates. Jay Stokes, I want Notre Dame to win it all just to spite Kelly. I agree, Jay. The thing for me, this is just off the wall, and I don't know if anyone really cares, but for me, it'd be a great storyline since I have a show. But if they're going to promote Marcus Freeman to interim head coach and possibly head coach, if he gets into the playoffs, there's a chance that Marcus Freeman could play his old team in Cincinnati. I don't know how many people remember Marcus Freeman was stolen from Luke Fickell's staff this offseason. So he's only 1 year removed. So he'd be playing an entire defense in Cincinnati of his players that he recruited. So for me, I would love to see a Cincinnati Notre Dame match up in the playoffs between Marcus Freeman against Luke Fickell and his former employer. Stoops again, talk about a retread. I agree, Booker. It is a complete retread. UCF, UF, University of Florida. Yes, Stoops, man, out of nowhere. I don't know how it happened. Is Rich taking his son? I'm not sure if he's taking his son or not, Booker. I haven't heard. This was a recent hire, and I'm not sure if his son's going to come with him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Rich son can go get him fired. Manny Diaz could go for Temple, man. I like it. Brian Kelly did the same thing at Cincy. The star wide receiver of that team was pissed at the Sugar Bowl. I agree. Listen, there's a lot of stories, Mr. Campbell, and we can have a Brian Kelly flambe Friday, like as Scotty would say, on Brian Kelly, but we'll just leave it at that. He's not a great guy based on all the reports. The FCS has a lot of linemen and other transfers from FBS because Houston. Like and share, man. I appreciate it, Sonic Boom, man. Definitely like and share, man. I appreciate y'all. They're going to move up in 2023. Yeah, so one more year. No Jackson State online made the first team. No kidding. Listen, no kidding, Felix. There's no ways, man, that any Jackson State. Listen, and I'll get the Jackson State hate for this. Tony Gray shouldn't have made second team. And I've talked to multiple parents of players, I mean, from the SWAC, and they said Tony Gray should not have been a second team. He didn't even play the whole season. So for me, we're just going to leave it at that. I didn't think he deserved second team. It's not to say your picks would have been better too. I'm going to buy some Bama property. Manny Diaz has never been a good coach. Let's see. Yes, it's costing a lot for a good coach. Miami's smart to sit this one out. I agree. For me, if Miami waits a cycle, you're looking at LSU, Florida, USC, Oklahoma, all these major jobs at TCU, Virginia Tech, Washington. None of these jobs are going to be open next year. So, in terms of Miami being the top potential opening next year, are really good. Outside of maybe a handful of places, I don't see Clemson, Georgia, Bama, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. None of those schools should have an opening next year outside of something dramatic happening. So Miami's going to have a good shot to get almost whoever they want next year. So I pretty much think that, in my opinion, that the Miami was smart to sit this one out. Yeah, Keontae should have made first team, Aaron. I said that earlier today, man. I thought he definitely should have been first round. Steve said, don't forget Washington State head coach because of COVID. Yeah, he got fired because he didn't want to get the vaccine. We'll see where he ends up. It's Nick Rolovich. I would imagine he's probably either one going to try to go to a state where you don't have to have the vaccine to work. But I mean, for me, I think costing yourself millions of dollars not to get the vaccine is a little short-sighted. But we all got opinions on that. Is Southern keeping Rollins? So Chris, I heard that Rollins is pretty much gone. I heard Dooley's almost a lock to get the job, Chris, but I personally think if they fire Rollins, they have to get they have to get better. They got to do something better, man. I'm sorry. I'm not a huge fan of it. If they hire Eric Dooley, I think them and Alabama State fumbled the ball on their coaching hires. I don't think either hire is a hire where you're saying we're going to win a SWAC championship in 2-3 years. That's what you have to have. You're going to have a hire that rocks the boat, that makes waves with recruits, and hiring somebody who has been average at Prairie View up until this year, not a great hire. And I mean, I think Jaluk would be better. I think Damian Craig. I mean, any of the names that have been linked to HBCU jobs, I think any of those names would be better than just keeping Rollins or hiring Dooley, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens with that one. I remember Brian Kelly did the same thing from Cincinnati to go to Notre Dame. I'm still rocking with Bluebloods on Shador and Wireman. Listen, if he played more, man, I think he would have got it. In my opinion, he would have probably got an All-American if he played in the first. I believe it was 5 or 6 games of the season. You're killing me, Blue. Coaching prices are not going to get cheaper. I'm not saying that. Listen, I'm not saying the price will get cheaper. I'm just saying you'll probably have better options. You're not going to have to compete with some of the best programs in the country. And so I think, Jay, you're going to see them make a strong push after Cristobal and Kiffin next year, in my opinion. So we're going to see. But I would be very shocked if Manny Diaz is fired to this point. I think as we inch closer to early signing period, you're going to see the coaching carousel kind of slow down because coaches want to be established going into the early signing period, which is, I believe, the 13th through the 16th of December, something like that. It's right there around the middle of December. And coaches and no program wants to have a coaching opening going into that week. Sana said, I jinx FAMU. Probably. Listen, Mr. Campbell gave me the FAMU potion, man. I picked them, and I think I jinxed them. Sonic Boom. I am a jinx. I'm going to have to call Scotty and get on those jinx picks with them before I make my picks because, man, my SWAC picks, man, have been just jinxing people left and right, especially some teams like an Alcorn, man. I could not get an Alcorn game right this year. I would pick them. They lose. I pick against them. They'd win. It was atrocious. Coincidentally, I've flown Stoops up to all the places, Ottawa, Ontario, to recruit a player some years ago. Man, that's crazy, Black Pilot. That's such a dope story, though, that you got to take them. You got to take them on a recruiting visit, man. That's awesome. I know it's a stretch, but what about Art Briles to PV? For me, JB, it depends on if you think Art Briles has been out of the game long enough to, because you got to remember, man, it was such an ugly breakup with Baylor with the whole sexual assault cases with multiple players and the university hiding it. And if you remember, the president, the AD, all the coaches, the players got a free. I mean, everybody got let go. I mean, they cleaned house. I mean, it was as close to the death penalty as we've had since the SMU death penalty back in like the late 80s. So for me, I think it depends on if PV is going to take the risk with, if any, backlash. Because I mean, even his son got backlash when he was hired, and Kendall Browse now, who's at Arkansas, and JB Auburn actually reached out to Art Browse to be the offensive coordinator and ended up not hiring him due to the backlash of what happened at Baylor. But I don't know if the backlash would be as big at PV. But I think that's something that the people, the boosters, and the people close to the AD at PV have to decide. But if all that's worked out and all that's not a factor, I think Art Briles to PV would be crazy, man. That offensive recruiting in Texas would be outrageous, man. I don't think Art Briles would be a better hire than what we've seen in the SWAC this year. So I agree with you that I think Art Briles would be a good one if you can get past all the other stuff. Laura said Bluebloods added to the Bama State list. Listen, man, I'm already blacklisted from a few schools, so you can add me to the list, man. You can add me. SWAC coaches need to stop hiring their buddies who coach Pee Wee teams. Start hiring actual coaches. I'm not. Listen, man. I'm already on like, let's just say, the shit list. So we'll leave it at that. I agree with you. I'll just say I'll agree with you, man. The retreading, man. Every conference, man. Every single conference has to stop retreading. I think retreading tears down more programs than it ever has built up, man. Ever has built up. After this postseason, I think they're going to lay more money onto Dooley if he's interested. Oh man, I'll be talking to my board to see if I can bring in Art Browse. Listen, you're going to have to get a lot of clearance. That's one of those hires like a Greg Schiano that you're going to have to get clearance from the upper people, because the PR backlash could be huge if you try to hire someone like an Art Browse. Houston would have killed that lineman from Southeastern. Lane had a one-on-one, and we're still looking for him. Houston one-on-one, no match even being dubbed. Let's see. I found it funny that some SWAC fans were trashing the possibility of Ray Lewis as a coach on one of the SWAC fan pages. Man, listen, I'm going to give y'all some like friendly advice, okay? Just some friendly advice from your boy. Man, get out of the SWAC groups, man. They're so toxic, and it's not worth it, especially a handful of them, man. There's like one or two good ones that's like chill, but man, some of those are just so toxic, not good for your mental health. Get out of the SWAC groups, man. Half of them don't know what they're talking about. Zero football knowledge in there, and it's just opinions and roasting, and it gets toxic in there. So I left a few of them because it just got crazy, man. It got crazy. So I would just say get out of it. Don't trust anything you see in those SWAC groups. Where do you think Hilaire will end up? Do you think he has a legitimate chance of going P5? For me, man, I think he could probably get. I would say he possibly at least could get a group of 5 offer. With how packed the portal is, though, I think he's going to have to probably wait to find where some of these other guys go. But I absolutely, in my opinion, think he can go he can grow at least group of 5, maybe lower P5. But I would have a hard time seeing him at like a legit Big Ten or Pac-12 school. But I could see him maybe in one of these lower schools in each of the conferences. But I think Hilaire is going to be an interesting prospect to watch. But when you look at like a Jadon Hazelwood entering the portal and some other players like that, I think Hilaire is going to have to kind of sort out where they're going. But I would imagine that he's going to get some big calls from at least some lower end Power 5, definitely some group of 5 offers in the transfer portal. I'd be interested to see if did he transfer because he wanted to be out of Alabama A&M, or did he transfer because he wanted to be out of the FCS and the SWAC? I think that's a question that I think someone has to answer first. But for me, I think he has a chance at the FPS level. Absolutely. If you're a player on Southern, how do you feel about getting a coach on a 4-game losing skid? That's what I'm saying, man. What kind of who are you getting, man? Like, why are you going to hire somebody who had a chance to win a SWAC title and just absolutely just collapse down the stretch and hasn't won anything, in my opinion? So I agree. I don't think it's a good hire at all to get Dooley. You're interested in the O-line job. Listen, man, Jackson State not hiring me for the O-line job. I promise, man. I promise. Not hiring me for that, man. I wish, but no. Where will Arizona State running back transfer to? He's a beast, big back. Oh man, listen, the running back portal this year, man, it's packed. Listen, I know a lot of people. I know Coach Simmons was on the Jalen Berger to Jackson State, and I know there were some other people talking about that, but Jalen Berger went to Michigan State. There's some teams that really need running backs right now. You're looking at Oklahoma; they only have like one scholarship running back right now. So for the Arizona State running back, he's going to have a lot of opportunities. I agree. He's a beast, man. Definitely like a third down back, someone who could take some beatings in between the tackles. But for me, I still think he's a West Coast kid. He's probably going to still stay out West. I think USC with Lincoln Riley would be interesting. UCLA has lost a bunch of running backs this year. I still think he probably stays out somewhere on the West Coast, man. Dave said Clemson has had a slowdown. What are people's chances of being a sleeper coach that leaves? Listen, Dave, I have a family member on the coaching staff at Clemson, man. Listen, if Dabo Swinney leaves Clemson, hell will freeze over. I'll just say that. I cannot see Dabo Swinney leaving. The only job that you potentially can argue is a better job than what Clemson is Alabama. Nick Saban's not giving that job up. So I would anywhere else Dabo could go would be a downgrade. So I don't think Dabo would ever leave Clemson unless it was for probably the Alabama job where he played and he's from Alabama. But I can't ever see him leaving for any other P5 job in the country, man. I mean, not even in Ohio State or Georgia. I think he's at Clemson for his whole career unless something like an Alabama opens up, in my opinion. I tried to tell y'all Alcorn was losing a bet. Alcorn beat Northwestern State. Yeah, they did. Mr. Campbell said, hell no to Art Briles. T said no. Ray Lewis has been a terrible coach. Art Briles has been coaching in high school ball in Texas at a private high school. I heard Sonny wants to bring him into TCU. Man, that'd be interesting to see if TCU let that happen. But yeah, the high school ball is a little bit different due to the PR. He can just kind of disappear into the background. But if TCU offers him, that's going to be an interesting offensive coordinator role because he did big things when he was at Baylor, man. Right as listen, Waves, I don't know, man. The retreads are real at the FBS level, man. I promise. If you're going to retread, at least try to get a good coach. Man, y'all are too much in here, man. Transfer portal becoming like a trap house. I think JSU going to clean up. I think even Shador may get a high school wide receiver. Jordan Williams from Indiana or Evans. Yeah, Zach Evans from TCU. Yeah, man. The transfer portal is crazy. I know. Let's see. For me, hang on. I got the top 10 recruits. So right now, the top 10 recruits in the transfer portal right now. One, former 5-star DB Elias Ricks from LSU. He's in the transfer portal, but he's already named a top 4, but his top 2s are Alabama and Ohio State. So he's going to one of those 2 schools, probably Ohio State. But Elias Ricks is definitely the number 1 prospect in the portal, man. He has, I believe, 3 years of eligibility left. Was a former 5-star, was easily one of the best corners in the SEC. He's headed out and will probably be playing either in Tuscaloosa or Columbus next year. Also, I think, listen, I know everyone's high on Zach Evans, but I'm not super high on him. He hasn't proved anything at this level, and there's a lot of other issues off the field that come with the Zach Evans. But listen, Jahmyr Gibbs, if you haven't heard that kid's name, he's the Georgia Tech running back that just transferred. Go watch his highlights in terms of what he's done at Georgia Tech and go watch his high school highlights. Jahmyr Gibbs, in my opinion, is by far the best running back in the portal this year. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs, wherever he goes, is going to be a whole problem. Now, he's also named the top 2 as of right now, and it's Ohio State and Alabama. I mean, the rich just keep getting richer. So Jahmyr Gibbs will probably either go to Ohio State and or Alabama, but he just entered the portal not too long ago, so I'm sure he's still waiting to see on who contacts him. But for me, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is by far the best running back in the portal in terms of someone who's proved it on the college level. Now, Zach Evans is another one-man TCU running back. I know a lot of people are talking about him going to Jackson State. That would be, I think that'd be a great option for them. If they get Zach Evans, man, listen, the SWAC, you might as well write and pin like Jackson State going to the SWAC championship if they solve the running back issue with a Zach Evans and he ends up living up to the potential. Man, that team's going to be so good if they get Zach Evans. Also, Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma quarterback, former 5-star. There's a lot of questions about where he would go. Right now, I would say Arizona State, Arizona, maybe even a UCLA now that Dorian Thompson-Robinson's time is coming to an end pretty soon. I think he goes West Coast, to be honest with you. That's where he's from. He was the number one prospect in Arizona in his class. I think he personally goes to one of the two Arizona schools, maybe even slides down to maybe a Western Texas school somewhere down there. But I just can't see him coming down to the Southeast, in my opinion. But a lot of things, a lot of things could change. But I think a West Coast destination is absolutely the move for Spencer Rattler. But one of the quarterbacks that listen, Mr. Campbell, if you're in here, this is the guy. Listen, give me Willie Simmons' number. Someone put it in the chat if you have it. Dylan Gabriel is transferring from UCF, has 1 year of eligibility left. This is the quarterback that led UCF to their win over Auburn in the Peach Bowl, an undefeated season for 2 years. He's coming off a major injury. He transferred from UCF, and Dylan Gabriel is a quarterback that absolutely, I mean, this kid was one of the best quarterbacks in the country coming out. He's done it at a high level in the AAC. He's a Florida guy. FAMU, get Dylan Gabriel on the phone. This is a guy who I think could do big numbers in that Willie Simmons offense. I know everyone loves the Spencer Rattler to the Rattlers. Dylan Gabriel's a Florida kid right in your backyard. If FAMU doesn't at least make a call, something went terribly, terribly wrong with that recruitment. Also, former five-star Jadon Hazelwood, Oklahoma wide receiver, announced his decommitment to, or his transfer today. He's probably headed to USC with Lincoln Riley and all. In all bets, guys, if I had to put money on it. But if he doesn't go there, it'd be interesting to see. I know he considered the South a lot in terms of the SEC. There's a lot of SEC schools that have expressed interest. I know Auburn today said that they expressed interest in him, and I'm sure Alabama and some of these other top schools are going to express interest. But I would be hard-pressed to see him going anywhere other than to USC with Lincoln Riley. Also, Marcus Banks, Alabama defensive back, has entered the transfer portal as well. Former four-star. I haven't heard anything about where he's going. He's been very quiet with his recruitment, but this could be a guy that probably will wind up somewhere back in the South. He wants to play in the Southeast, and all his colleges he considered coming out were in really the Southeast. And then finally, the last two, Miles Frazier, Florida International offensive lineman, and Tyon Evans, Tennessee running back, are the other top two in the top 10 that aren't committed already. And so those are the top prospects, in my opinion, in the transfer portal right now. Yeah, DJ's wrong. Crunch said Rattler's most likely Pac-12 bound. I agree. He's a West Coast kid, and I really do think that if he's going to go anywhere, he's going to go back home, somewhere in terms closer to his family. Somebody is going to have to explain why one of the greatest of all time would not be able to recruit. Let's see. He's now leaving this Facebook SWAC groups. If college coaching is about recruiting, he needs to go to JSU. When Coach Prime wins it all this year, do you think he's going to push for the playoffs next year, Bluebloods? I don't know, man. Listen, I think eventually, Lionel, he's going to want to go to the playoffs, but I think right now, messing up, I think the problem with him doing that, Lionel, is that one, they're going to have to lose to FAMU and then hope FAMU wins out to even do that. And then two, how do you tell the SWAC that you want to opt out of their conference championship game? That's the problem. If it was just a Celebration Bowl that was out of order, that would be different. But I just don't know how you can tell the SWAC and look them right in the face and be like, listen, we're just going to skip the conference championship game after we made it. I would have such a hard-pressed time seeing, any coach doing that. And I think until the SWAC championship is moved or the FCS playoffs is moved, something like that happens, I just don't think anybody who wins the division is going to be able to, make any type of push for the playoffs. So either they're going to have to lose on purpose to FAMU and hope they win out, or they're going to have to win the division to go to the SWAC championship. And I just don't see how a team opts out of their conference championship game. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of college football. What do you think the rate for Power 5 coaches is going to be next? Everyone can't get $100 million deals. You think Cincinnati can keep Fickell? So Fickell just signed an extension. DeAndre, I don't remember how much it was for, but I know we signed an extension, I believe, last week, or they're working on an extension. But the going rate, man, is going to go up every year. I think you're going to see more coaches probably making them around the $5 to $8 million. And you're probably going to see over the next few years the elite of the elite coaches making upwards of 12 to 15 million with incentives. And that's probably going to be the going rate for elite coaches. And so, you're probably going to see a Kirby Smart. His next contract to Georgia is probably going to break the bank and probably set the standard for keeping high level coaches. And you look at what USC got, DeAndre. I mean, USC offered Lincoln Riley one of the best contracts in the country. They bought both of his houses in Norman for like $500K above asking price. They gave him a house in Southern California. He has access to like a private jet. They got like access to schooling for his kids. I mean, he got so many benefits on top of what he was already getting, DeAndre, that I think the perks and the incentives are probably going to be the main thing that really just goes outrageous in terms of Power 5 coaches moving forward. Let's see. I don't see Shoelace or Pat White or Steve Slayton anymore. Why is Rich Rod going? I'm not sure, man. But yeah, man. Listen, they're on fire, man. The second round of the playoffs were crazy for the D2 level, man. I wish I had time to cover them, man. But with everything else I cover, there's no way. Yeah, I agree, Mr. Campbell. Dabo's only going to Alabama, man. Liberty hired Baylor's old AD, Ian McCall, after he left Baylor, so Art Briles might get a shot somewhere. That's true. If Hugh Freeze ends up leaving Lawrence, that would be a place I would just pencil in Art Briles. Absolutely. Will Ole Miss get Rattler? I'm not sure. So listen, waves on swim. The thing that for me, the thing about the Rattler and the Dylan Gabriel and all these sweepstakes is Ole Miss, Texas, Georgia, Bama, and Clemson are all in the running for Arch Manning. Those are his top 5 teams right now. So there is talk that some of these schools might not pursue might not pursue some of these top quarterbacks because they don't want to give the impression that they don't want a kid like an Arch Manning. So the Arch Manning sweepstakes are real, and there's teams purposely not going after transfer portal quarterbacks so they have a better chance at landing Arch Manning because he's such a generational prospect. And that's from one of my close sources at Ole Miss too, is that they are looking straight to Arch Manning and they think they have a good shot to land him. Them, Georgia, and Bama are really the 3 teams that absolutely think they have a great shot to get Arch Manning. So I would be very shocked if they went after him to get Rattler, man, in my opinion. Let's talk about why you switched your pick to FAMU. You talked about how Southeastern Louisiana defense was bad. Listen, man, listen, I was not a channel that was, trashing on the defense. I said they weren't the best, but man, their secondary was legit. And if you would have told me Rashad McKay threw 40 times, I would have picked Southeastern by like 50, man. There was no way I was picking FAMU if they were only giving the ball to Bishop Bonnet 9 times. So listen, I rode with FAMU. They played it. They got out of their game plan, and hopefully we can see them in the playoffs soon again, man. But yeah, I was wrong on that game. I'll give you that. It seems like Evans has matured. There's been no bad news about him. Plus, Dion has a great relationship with the All-American game. I agree. If Evans goes anywhere outside of a top P5, I absolutely think that he's going to go to Jackson State, Aaron. I do. I think the relationship with Dion's real. I think he does want to play with him. Chris says, I feel bad for Baldwin. He should have stayed at JSU. He didn't really get used at Michigan. But honestly, I think it's too much depth. Listen, man, everyone could say that the top wide receiver at Michigan got hurt. But, I mean, Dalen's seen some action. But he's just, man, you're right. I mean, the wide receiving core for Michigan really stepped up. And then also he went to a school that is a run-first game. If you watch that Michigan-Ohio State game, Hassan Haskins and I believe it's Blake Corum at running back, they're going to get all the carries. Cade McNamara is never going to have above 20 to 25 attempts in a game. And I think that really hurt Baldwin's potential, Chris, in that offense. And also, he transferred so late that I did hear that early on it was tough for him to get play time because he was trying to adjust to the playbook and things like that. But overall, man, I agree. I wish he would have got used more, but I think it's a great experience that he gets to be on a potential college football playoff team. And listen, if you're a Jackson State fan, root for Michigan hard, man. It would be so cool to see Dalen Baldwin potentially get a shot to play in the national title game. And I think overall, the experience of playing closer to home and playing closer to family, Chris, probably meant a lot to Dalen, to be completely honest with you. Matt Corral will start for the Broncos next season. Let's go. Let's see. Alcorn had the toughest schedule, and they had it on the road. How you take the 6-time defending East champ, 2-time back-to-back SWAC champ, and move them to the West and force all road games on them? It's a good question, Romeo. That's above my pay grade, man. I'm interested in seeing how Brian Kelly coaches a team like LSU with all that talent. So, DJ, for me, man, I know I said on my episode about it. I think personally that I think Brian Kelly is going to do wonders at LSU. You know, the number one thing I don't think enough people talked about on other shows was that how much red tape that he had to go through to get some of the players in there due to the ridiculous academic standards that a Notre Dame had. And on top of that, in LSU, there's going to be players in your backyard, like in the Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi region that you can just drive to and get, and they're going to be high level athletes. There's nothing in South Bend, Indiana. There's no talent like there is in Louisiana. And so for me, the number one thing for Brian Kelly, DJ, is how can he recruit the state of Louisiana? There has not been an LSU coach that has been successful that hasn't built a wall around Louisiana or at least defended it and landed some of the top prospects out of the state. You can't let Georgia, you can't let Alabama just come pluck your best talent out of your backyard. Brian Kelly will be successful if he can recruit Louisiana. But if he can't do that, and that's a worry, he has no Southern ties, DJ, man. The guys from Connecticut, coached at Central Michigan, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame, can he get used to the SEC grind of recruiting? That's going to be my biggest question for Brian Kelly for me, man. But I think when you look at what he's done with the talent he's had at Notre Dame, I absolutely think that if you load him with the talent that Coach O had, I think he can do bigger things than what a Coach Ed Orgeron could have done. Underscore said JSU needs a better O-line before they get to the playoff. Their O-line is they're not ready for the playoffs maybe in 2 years. That's what I said, Mr. Reed. I think people try to jump the gun, and I've said that repeatedly. And for me, I think people label the channel, and I know there's still some people who say that we hate on Jackson State on this channel. I don't see it, but it's fine. We won't get into all that. But for me, it wasn't that I thought Jackson State didn't have talent. It's just, and I've said it here, the North Dakota State's, the James Madison's, not only do they have better funding, like a Mr. Campbell would say, they have a history of building a playoff contender. They've done it for year after year after year, and this is Deion's first year. I thought it was unfair to have to already try to tell him he has to go compete with the North Dakota State. That's won 8 national titles in 10 years. It's unfair to say he's got to go beat into James Madison on the road. He's got to go beat at Eastern Washington on the road. I thought that was an unfair comparison. I think if one more to 2 more recruiting classes, and Jackson State's absolutely a national title contender at the FCS level. My thing is everything's a process, and I thought too many fans were trying to skip steps up the ladder on this progress. And if you do that, you're going to end up falling. And I think too many people were trying to rush it, making videos that they should be ranked number 1 of the FCS and that they could go compete in the Big 12. It's a process, and I think it's to be fair to Deion, you need to give him more than 1 recruiting class. And so I agree with you on that, man. And I think people just heard that I said they couldn't compete at the FCS level and just thought it was a hate when it really is not that. It's like, if you give him some more classes, he can, but 1 class isn't winning you a national title. It takes multiple classes, just like it does at the P5 level. And I think that's what a lot of people got confused with, man. Next year, we should push for a regular season and tournament champion. We'll let Alcorn have that final game next year, man. I like Gibbs and the kid from Tennessee. Yeah, listen, Aaron, Gibbs is one of my favorite players. I'm trying to get him on the show to see what he's thinking in terms of his transfer, but I'll let y'all know on that. I mean, it'd be a bad idea for JSU to purposely lose to FAMU to make the playoffs. Oh, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying if you want them in the playoffs, that's what's going to have to happen. I just don't see that would be such a conspiracy theory that the SWAC would have a heart attack if that happened. JSU needs a little more time. Freshman QB, first-year head coach, let mature in playing more out of conference teams. I agree, man. I completely agree. Let's see. I'm trying to find, man. I got so behind on comments. 247 has Gabriel going to Ole Miss. That's interesting. Gabriel's different than Rattler, I think, Ralph, because Gabriel only has 1 more year of eligibility. I think Rattler has 2, maybe 3 due to COVID. So I think that was that was the difference in terms of between Gabriel and Rattler being recruited. If you win the first round game and make SWAC history, all is well. The game will move, but we got to capitalize the opportunity. I agree, Booker. You got to move on it. Got to move on it, man. Manning is a year away, though. Yeah, that's why I think Gabriel would be a better option for an Ole Miss. But listen, I mean, if you go get Rattler, listen. Anybody's succeeding in Lane Kiffin's offense. I'll say that. Black Paul said he can't see Arch Manning to Ole Miss. Miami definitely has some nice perks: beach houses, yacht, jet, strippers for Lane Kiffin. Man, Jay, you are too much, man. You are too much. Whoever gets David Cutcliffe will get Arch Manning. That's a fact, man. David Cutcliffe is going to be important in that recruitment. Who do you think JSU is looking at in the portal? So I know Zach Evans for sure, Lionel, and I know if you follow CFL, they've offered a handful of wide receivers and some offensive linemen. But for me, I think Zach Evans right now is by far the biggest target, Lionel, in terms of getting that running back spot. But Coach Prime and those guys have to recruit offensive linemen, man. That's going to be the number one thing I want to see is how do they replace or how do they upgrade their offensive lineman spot? And also, how do they replace a James Houston, Keontae Hampton, and some of those linebackers that they lost in DNs? I want to see how they recruit those positions as well. Why would rather go to ASU and lose and not raise the stock? That's just where he's from, man. And everyone likes to transfer back home, but he'd be playing under Herm Edwards. That's a huge NFL head coach. And also, I believe Marvin Lewis is still within that program too. So he would have two former NFL head coaches coaching him. Coach Prime in 2 years, he'll be the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, man. I'm a JSU fan, but also root for Michigan. Felt good to be at Ohio State, man. Congratulations, Chris. That was crazy, man. That was crazy. Help my cousin get at JSU. Bud Tolbert, Jones Junior College, 6'2", 195, 4'4" beast. Listen, man, tell him to DM me on Instagram, man. Tell him to DM me on Instagram, man. We'll definitely get him on the channel, man, and get his name out there. Baldwin, it's got to see what a program is that sends NFL players to the NFL. Man, I like it. Good cooking in Louisiana too. Facts is hard to recruit for Notre Dame and Vanderbilt. LSU needs to stop playing neck and do what you want to. Listen, Sonic Boom, I know some LSU graduates, they're never going to stop playing neck. Listen, never. They are never going to stop playing neck in Death Valley, Sonic Boom. That is like they live on that song and they play it. Oh, they are over the top with. I've been to some games in Death Valley. Listen, do what you want to, maybe Sonic Boom, but you're going to have to burn down the school if you want them to stop playing neck. They're never going to stop playing neck in Death Valley. Underscore JSU needs a 6', 210-pound back. Similarly built receivers like the one from Southern. The reason why Baldwin was so good at JSU because he could just run over people. I agree, man. Listen, Dalen Baldwin this year in this Jackson State offense would have been crazy, man. Do you imagine Dalen Baldwin and Malachi Wadman on the outside with Lanier and Newman in the slot and then Corbin in the slot? Man, that would have been unstoppable, man. Especially with the deep threat that Wadman became, you would have to play. I don't even know. You would just have to play like prevent defense against those two wide receivers, man. It would be a crazy combination to see Wadman and Baldwin play on the same team. Jalen Thigpen from UFP going into the draft. Oh, man, I like it. Listen, Jalen Thigpen deserves a chance. I'll say that. Yeah, but some people said they could beat up. Oh, yeah, listen, that's not happening, man. I saw it. I know. Listen, it's not happening. I think Prime will have enough players in development to win 2 rounds next year. I mean, yeah, I can see it. And depending on the matchup, Sonic Boom. Listen, the playoffs every year, and any of the big FCS people in the chat will, I think, second this. The FCS playoffs isn't always about how good of a team you have. It's one about the momentum you have at that point in the season, and also two, who you match up with. And I think if Jackson State gets a great matchup, they absolutely can make a small run. But it's hard to get good matchups when you get to like the Final 4, Final 8, because those teams are usually the best of the best, especially in the semifinals with the Final 4. There's no good matchups. You're just going to have a good team. But I think next year, if Jackson State has a great matchup in the first round, if they ultimately go to the playoffs, they absolutely could win a handful of games and make a small run. Coach Prime deserves Coach Prime SWAC Coach of the year, well deserved. I agree. It was not even it wasn't even a in terms of it wasn't even a debate. I would say that, Steve. I think Lane wants Radler. Prime needs to find a donor for our bid. Listen, and the number one thing is SWAC has to help out too. Some of these other conferences, if they only send 1 or 2 teams, will help out with the bid as well. And so I think the SWAC in general needs to throw in money too to get those bids up there, because they got to host some games, man. Especially if you can get to the second and third round and then have a chance to bid to host like a semifinal game or something, that would be huge. And that's the difference, is the home field advantage at Jackson State could be giant in the playoffs if they can get the bid up. They're recruiting big boys from Utah, Wisconsin. Man, listen, they build them different in Jersey and Wisconsin, man. The Kansas and the Wisconsin and Nebraska guys at O-line, man, they are built completely different, man. Those are the type of guys you want blocking for you. 80% of the SWAC and MEAC need new coaches. What JSU wide receivers are leaving seniors after the season? I'm pretty sure, and Jackson State fans can correct me because I know with the COVID year it gets all weird. I believe Corbin, Lanier, and Newman are all out, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Reed. I'm pretty sure those are the three that are leaving due to their senior year, and they will return everyone else. Quay Davis will probably step up into the starting lineup, but I'm pretty sure it's Newman, Lanier, and Corbin are the seniors right now for Jackson State at the wide receiver spot. How long do you think Kelly's going to last at LSU? Man, Leon, it's so hard to predict, especially with not seeing what his recruiting class is going to be like, who he can flip, and also want to see who he's going to hire as his coordinators, Leon, because I think his coordinators hires are going to be more important. Now, he had a big win. If any of my LSU fans are in the chat, they did keep Corey Raymond as the DB coach, and a lot of people want him to be promoted to D coordinator because Corey Raymond has been a staple of LSU football and LSU recruiting these past few years. So I think Kelly, man, if he lasts, in my opinion, with college football the way it's going, most wide receivers or most head coaches, my bad, I was reading the comments, most head coaches only last about 3 years at their respective positions on average across college football. So if you get 5-6 years out of Kelly, man, and you get 1 or 2 playoff appearances, you compete for the SEC every year, I think that'd be great. So I'm going to go with probably 5 to 7 years. I can see Kelly being at LSU. I don't think they move on him too fast, and I think he has enough success early to buy him some time. But I think 5 to 7 years would be my prediction if I had to put my money on it. Baldwin would have beat ULM all by himself. Dave said 2022, 2023, Oklahoma versus Nebraska. Which school does Urban Meyer do better at success in the SEC and Big Ten? Just curious if hell freezes and one of these schools land Urban. Today, I actually believe, Dave, right before I started recording, Urban said that he's sticking with the Jaguars. But let's just say it's 2023. Let's just say next year the Jags are just as terrible. Trevor Lawrence doesn't play well. Travis Etienne doesn't come back healthy. He absolutely would do better. He would absolutely do better at Oklahoma. Let's just be honest, Dave. I mean, Nebraska is so hard to recruit in, and I don't think Nebraska holds the same weight with today's recruits than it did in the 90s with Tommy Frazier and some of those guys. And then there's a whole partial qualifier thing I talked about last week. Y'all got to go read the SI article, I believe, about it. The partial qualifier rule was really responsible for how successful Nebraska was over in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I just don't think I think Nebraska fans have to come to grips with that. They're not that team anymore. So I think Oklahoma would be a way better job for Urban Meyer, Dave. I think he would turn Oklahoma into bona fide national title contenders if he came back to Oklahoma. Yeah, and Newman, the conference should use a percentage of the celebration more money toward playoff home bids. Black Pilot, I think it's a good idea. Is it going to happen? Probably not, because I know they're going to say that money has to go elsewhere. And listen, I'm not in the SWAC offices. I don't have the SWAC hours to tell you where that money necessarily goes, Black Pilot. And there's been people who have called into, I believe, Scotty's show that said it doesn't even go all to the football program. I don't know if that's true. So for me, I'm not going to speculate on that, but I think it'd be great to use some of that money. And if you play a money game, I think a better opportunity would be if you play a big money game, take part of that money to help you bid for the playoffs moving forward, Black Pilot. That would be my I guess suggestion. But I don't think people would be happy if you use the Celebration Bowl money to fund playoff runs, because there's so many people against playoff runs already. Calling it now, Quay Davis will be the best wide receiver in the SWAC this season. Listen, Jersey, don't sleep on my guy Malachi Wadman, man. But yeah, Quay Davis and Malachi Wadman are going to be problems next year for Jackson State. I can't wait to see what he turns out to be. But Quay Davis was such a highly touted recruit, and I was excited to see him play, even though he ended up not being able to play this year. But Malachi Wadman and him are going to be problems for most defenses. Kelly just doesn't seem like a Southern guy. He's not. I think he's from Connecticut, and he's only coached at Northern-based schools, so he's definitely not a Southern guy. But I'm interested to see if he can recruit the South, Leon. That's going to be a key. Yeah, the LSU band director is a Jacksonian, so they're going to play neck. Any word on the quality O line that Coach Prime is recruiting and bringing in? So, Mr. J Reed, I've been focused on more like the conference championships this week. I usually don't get fully into recruiting until after the season, but I know if you go check out CFL, he had a great video on one of them. I'm blanking on his name, but I know they have big offers out there to O linemen. And I talked to a parent at Jackson State, and he told me that they have some big offers to some big O linemen, but they want to keep it under wraps until after the season. So wait till probably about mid-December, and then I think you're going to see more commits and more information being available on who they offered and where they are, Mr. Reed. But I think Dion wants to keep the focus on the season, so they've really kept their recruiting under wraps for the most part. They copied off of Southern long before JSU got there. That do what you want to. They played. It's sad if they play. Can you feel it and let your mind let your mind be free? I'm done. Jack should let Urban go and get Byron Leftwich. Yeah, man. Listen, Byron Leftwich is making him some money at the Bucks, and I think even after Tom Brady leaves, I think Byron Leftwich can go get him a head coaching job somewhere. I think he's done great things on Arian's staff, and that's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, Myers staying with the Jags, like saving stuff with the Dolphins. Listen, man, as a Dolphins fan and an Auburn fan, that situation scarred me for life. So as a Dolphins fan, we lost Nick Saban, and then they goes to my rival school at Alabama, and now has beaten Auburn just repeatedly. Man, listen, that's my nightmare. Like, if you could pinpoint one moment in my life that has caused me more stress than anything, it's Nick Saban leaving my favorite NFL team to go to the team I hate the most in college football, which is Alabama. Yeah, Prop 48 rule burned Nebraska, man. That was the end of Nebraska's dynasty, was that Prop 48 rule. Most money goes to academics. We could find sponsors and turn the first JSU game, the WC Gordon Classic, into a nice FCS game. I agree, man. There's too many teams in the South that I think would still play if you guys did that. So we'll see. That celebration money ain't all we make it out to be when you look closer at it. Alcorn almost broke, and they went they went multiple times signing Boone. So that's a good point. The SWAC office has no interest in the playoffs until the money gets right. The FCS playoffs are on digital. The SWAC championship is on ESPN2. The Celebration Bowl is on ABC. It's about the money. Yep. I mean, like Mr. Campbell said, guys, I mean, until the money's right for them, it's absolutely it's not going to happen. I just don't see the SWAC, funding a lot of playoffs runs until Mr. Campbell said the money's right, man. Let's see, something about talked to a guy earlier who could be a wide man at tight end for us. That'd be interesting, man. And listen, Jackson, I think this weekend, if there's one takeaway from the FAMU game outside of everything that's already been talked about, it's that the tight ends have to be used more. Southeastern's tight end killed FAMU's defense. He had Nolan Given, I believe he had 2 touchdowns on Saturday night. It showed how creative it allows your offensive play calling to be if you use the tight end. And so I really want to see. I mean, you look at FAMU, they had a solid tight end. You look at Jackson State, they had some talented tight ends. Southern had arguably the best tight end coming into the season, and nobody was utilized down the stretch. So for me, I think tight end usage in the SWAC is the next step in terms of innovating offenses in the SWAC and making them more productive. If JSU fans would get loud when the other team is on the field, man, I don't think there'd be any team in the SWAC that'd be ready for that. Man, I agree. And listen, it was kind of a shock for me because, being an Auburn student, I've been at huge games, and I've just traveled to games that even Auburn hasn't even played in. I went to the LSU Alabama game, when that Leonard Fournette game, when it was like 1 versus 3 or 4 or something like that, and it was just deafening in there. And it was supposed to be the game of the year. It was tabbed, Alabama A&M versus Jackson State, and we sat on the Alabama A&M side because we got tickets through Alabama A&M, but the Jackson State fans were way louder than the Alabama A&M fans were all game long. Every time the band played, every time there was a big play, the Jackson State side would get loud for big plays on the road. But then every time a big play happened for Alabama A&M, it really, like, there were like more people not watching the game than anything. And it really shocked me that in a game of a year like that, there were just not many people tuned into what was going on. We were in the family section, like we sat near Akil's family. They were all tuned in, but there were a lot of people who just weren't even like tuned into the game. And I was like, this is supposed to be the game of the year, man. And there's just a bunch of people that are just like are distracted by other stuff. So I thought that was like the biggest thing for me, man. If Jackson State could get all 60K tuned in, screaming with some sort of entertainment factor with it, man, that stadium could be terrifying, especially at night, man. Let's see. JSU beat the SWAC conference pretty good. These playoff teams will blow out every school. Montana State, yeah, Montana State's a problem, man. I'll give you that. They need to get prominent athlete to promote the playoffs. Just imagine Kamari Everett at FAMU or Jack State. Listen, Jersey, the biggest what if of this season is what happens if Kamari Everett plays on a good team. That's just the question of the year. What happens if Shedeur Sanders has the outlet to go to Kamari Everett when he's in trouble? What happens to the matchups? Because then you got to account for Malachi. You got to account for the speed of Lanier, Warren Newman, Keith Corbin, and you've also got to worry about Everett. I mean, that would be a problem in terms of a matchup nightmare, man. And I think Everett should get a shot at the next level, Drizzy. I think this year to do what he did at Bethune-Cookman was so impressive. I thought he was one of the more impressive players of the season for me. He was blocking well in the videos I found too. Hopefully, we have some MSU and Ole Miss fans at the game this weekend. There definitely could be nothing else going on for those universities right now. Doesn't make sense when they can keep all that money. What is better for JSU going to Southeastern Louisiana or playing the SWAC championship game this weekend with sponsors only for JSU? Playoff wins bring you sponsors, top payout for the conference teams, top recruits, and more players drafted. Let's see. You think Mr. Lincoln Riley didn't want this smoke with the Alabama LSU offer? That's why he went to USC. So listen, Lionel. Man, I'm trying to explain this the best I can. I don't think he ran from it, Lionel, if that makes sense. So everyone was saying Lincoln Riley was scared of the SEC. I don't think he necessarily was scared, but I do think he dipped away to get away from the SEC because of this. So let me run it to you like this, because I don't think he was scared. So it's like this. So you're in a fight, like you're in an alley, and you got to fight somebody, and there's like, you got like an Anderson Silva on this side, and you got like some dude that you're twice the size up on this side. I'm going the easier route. I'm fighting my way out of the alley against a guy that I know I can beat. And so I think that's what he did, Lionel. I don't think he was scared of the SEC. I just think it's a business decision. As a head coach legacy, he said, I'm going to be able to go out here and win Pac-12 titles. My only competition is Oregon and Utah every other year. Or I can go join the SEC or the SEC West at LSU and have to compete against the greatest coach of all time every single season. And if I don't beat him, I'm more than likely going to be fired. So for me, I think it was a smarter business decision to go to LA, to be the face of one of the top programs in the country in USC in terms of brand recognition. It was easier to go win the Pac-12 and make the college football playoff every single season than have to go compete in the SEC. So I don't know. I don't think it was scared. I don't think he was scared. But good business decisions were made by Lincoln Riley, especially when you look at all the perks they gave him. I think he just made a smart business decision rather than, ducking the smoke, you could say, in that aspect. Let's see, Alabama ain't defensive tall, man. Lord, it's taking shots already. Imagine if JSU had a Southern all-corner PV running back or even just a slightly better O-line. How about y'all win one first before talking about the that JSU's never won in a game with the playoffs with better pro talented teams. Celebration Bowl money and they're still broke. What's up, Mr. Moore, man? Appreciate you tuning in, man. Let's see. The more people see us getting cheated now, Prom ain't gonna ignore it. The SWAC shorts of Oklahoma and Texas are hilarious, man. Listen, that guy is so funny, man. Like the people who do the SEC shorts, all this kind of stuff, man, is hilarious, man. Like, and also Coach 30, man, top-notch stuff. He needs to start doing more like SWAC stuff as well, like expand a little bit. But man, that dude is hilarious, man. All the shorts that they make fun of everybody is hilarious. Riley, the bestest he said the best business decision made in the last decade. Oh man. There's so many teams switching conferences to one thing I haven't seen, but wondered if it might happen. Is there any SEC teams that leave the SEC? Maybe the bottom feeders like Arkansas or Vandy. Um, no. Okay, so Dave, the thing is the quote you're like here's what I was told by a guy who has a lot of connection in the SEC is you're looking at it from a college football perspective. Vandy's not leaving the SEC because they're dominating in baseball, and that's where Vandy actually makes their money. Kentucky is, an average team in football, but they're dominating on the basketball aspect. Arkansas's got a team that consistently competes in basketball and baseball. And then, you even look at, a South Carolina dominates women's basketball, has been to the tournament multiple times in men's basketball. All these bottom feeder teams that might be bottom feeders in football are giants in another sport. And so I think that's why you won't see, that's in my opinion, that's why you're not going to see a lot of these bottom feeder teams leave the SEC. Plus, man, Dave, you might get beat up. You might get beat up every year, but guess what's going to be real nice when you go check your mailbox on campus and that multi-million-dollar check from the SEC TV deals is in your box and you get to deposit that. That's why none of these teams are leaving because there's not another conference that can offer you the type of money and exposure you're getting in the SEC. And I just absolutely I don't see anybody leaving the SEC for any other conference unless they're forced out or kicked out, pretty much. Um, let's see. Oregon, Utah, and Oregon's uniforms. I said fans, not the players. Riley made it out like a bandit. USC is better than any job in the SEC other than Alabama. Listen, I agree. If you're looking location, absolutely, man. You absolutely cannot tell me that going to Southern Cal and winning the Pac-12 every year is better, is worse than going to the SEC and having to fight for your life every single week. So, dude, how dare you? Lincoln did not leave because of LSU or Alabama or Auburn. He literally said he had to make a personal decision. Lincoln would never run off like that. It was for a good reason. Chance, no one said he ran off. What happened is I don't he made a good business decision too, man, because I mean Oklahoma, they're moving to the SEC. That's a big change, man. And I think Lincoln did love coaching at Oklahoma. And I don't think he ran for, like I said, man, I don't think he ran. I just think overall USC is a better opportunity in the long run. They got just as much funds as anybody. You mentioned Southern California. You mentioned the recruits you can get in California, because if you look at Oklahoma's recruiting classes, all three of their 5 stars in the 2023 class were from the West Coast. All their top recruits and their 2 5 stars played high school football like 20 minutes from USC. So I think it was more in terms of, for me, man, I think it was more of just for his career. I think he had a better opportunity to build just a giant legacy at USC, and they offered him the money and everything like that. Let's see. Vandy's got a decent b-ball team too. Yeah, I agree. And listen, they got a big, I believe, don't they have Stackhouse as their coach too? So they got a giant. He said Vandy's dominating academics too. Hang on, let's see. So I know you saw Riley had that USC shirt on, like he already had it on standby. Don't get me wrong, got torn apart last night. We just lost our best head coach in forever. We lost our tight end, and now we might be using our wide receiver Mills. Yeah, man. Listen, I feel bad for you, Chance. I know, man. Like, listen, as an Oklahoma, if you're an Oklahoma fan, I feel for you right now, man. It's been literally a constant stream to my phone of another recruit, another player leaving. I know Benito left. Mills is probably leaving. Hazelwood went. Chance, I think your best bet is to hope you land a slam dunk hire. I think Venables coming would be giant for the Sooners, but I think there's a lot of things to work out on Oklahoma's end moving forward and in terms of rebuilding that program, because I think the abruptness of Lincoln Riley leaving really left Oklahoma in such a weird place. No team will leave the SEC. Let's see. Lincoln had 120 million reasons to leave, man. You are wild. Um, let's see. I had a friend who got an offer from Vanderbilt on our football team last year during my senior year when I played in Alabama. I swear he told me, bro, I'd much rather play football at Sam Houston State. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not going to deny it, underscore, because I mean, you look at Vandy's attendance. I mean, man, listen, I'm going to be honest. I think Valley might have averaged more attendance than Vandy this year. Yeah, really and truly. I mean, I mean, Bethune probably averaged more attendance. I mean, Vandy has nobody come to the games. They got that. I thought they made a good hire with Lee as their head coach, but overall, they haven't done anything, man. Why would you want to go play for Vandy right now? There's nothing at Vandy right now that can offer you as a football player. I'm sorry. I mean, right now it's by far one of the worst programs in the country to play football. I mean, guys, to put this in perspective, ETSU, who's the 7th seed in the FCS playoffs, beat them by 20 points at home. They lost to a FCS team by 20 points at home this season. I mean, put that in perspective. Really and truly, man, they lost by 20 points to an FCS team. That can't happen. It's in the SEC anywhere at the FBS level. Man, appreciate it, Sonic Boom. Definitely like and share. USC might be the best job country in the country by where it is. I agree. I completely agree with that, Mr. Owens. In Southern California, sign me up all the time, man. Can Bob Stoops keep Caleb? He might bounce. Listen, if they lose Caleb, that's going to be a big hindrance because they've already lost Malachi Nelson, the 5-star quarterback that was committed for 2023. They got to keep Williams. And so I think that's going to be the number one key, Leon. If they lose Williams, they are up the creek without a paddle, man. I don't know what Oklahoma is going to do in that case if they lose that quarterback, but I would have it a hard-pressed time to see Caleb not follow him, to be completely honest. Chris, there were reports tonight that Oklahoma is interviewing Venables for the head coaching job, so that is an option right now. Let's see. Underscore is crazy. They need Venables back. He's a way underpaid assistant. Listen, Venables should get paid as much. Like Dabo Sweeney every year should hand him a blank check. He's the only reason that they probably, I would say they're probably Venables is the only reason Clemson saw 8-9 wins this year. Absolutely. That offense was atrocious, and Brent Venables' defense carried them through the season. So for me, personally, I think he's completely underpaid. I agree with you. He's underappreciated too. Bro, where is this dude from? Has he heard if Ole Miss? I don't know what that's about. To clarify, I shouldn't have said bottom feeders, but do teams that don't dominate the SEC leave and dominate the Big 12 or ACC, especially if they expand the playoffs? Maybe, man. I think, listen, if we're going to talk about how much money and how important the Celebration Bowl is, that check that's cut by the SEC every year, I think is so important too. It funds so many things for these SEC schools. So for me, I personally think that just the money's too much, Dave, to get them to leave. But if there's a program who thinks they can be financially stable in another conference doing it, I mean, maybe. But I think it would have to be, man, what team would you do? Because you have so many rivalries. Because the Iron Bowl would keep both Alabama, Auburn in there, Florida, LSU, and yeah, I mean, there's just too many rivalries. I think. I mean, I think the bottom feeders, even though you didn't mean to say that, I just think the bottom feeders would be the teams that do it because there's too many rivalries. The Mississippi schools absolutely could not leave unless it was together. Texas A&M and Texas are about to be in the SEC. I think the rivalries, Dave, would probably be the biggest drawback to leaving, unless there's a better opportunity. But I just can't say. I mean, where would you go? Because the ACC has been down, especially with Florida State and Miami not being the best version of themselves. Virginia Tech's kind of fallen off. The Big Ten, not geographically relevant for you. The Big 12, definitely not. The Pac-12, not relevant for you. So I just don't know. I don't see a conference that would, make a lot of sense in terms of for the SEC to leave. Jesus, I did not know that Vanderbilt lost to an FCS team by 20 points. That's bad. Yeah, man. Them in Colorado State. So Chance, like I mentioned, Bob Stoops is the interim head coach. He has a chance to become the new head coach again. They also supposedly are targeting Brent Venables as their top target to become the new head coach. But those are the only two names that I've heard Chance linked to the Oklahoma job. So it's very new, very abrupt. So I think right now they're kind of scrambling to get candidates together and get things rolling. I think they want to hire a candidate as soon as possible, especially with the mass exodus of players that they've had right now out of Norman. Let's see. We're scheduling Vandy in 2 years. Listen, Sonic Boom, Jackson State could have beat Vandy this year. Let me just say that, man. Venables is a defensive nightmare. Man, listen, so I know a few of you are members, so you've seen like my post in the members chat. I'm gonna do a big for my all-season content, I'm gonna do a bunch of film breakdowns for members to make it worth being a member. And Venables' defense against Alabama in that national championship is going to be one of the games I do. How creatively he blitzed and schemed to get pressure on Tua and that team. I absolutely think it was one of the most genius defensive schemes that I've ever seen. Especially, he did it again against Notre Dame last year in the ACC championship. I've said I don't think there's a better defensive blitzer and in a blitz dial up situation than Brent Venables, man. The way he creatively puts people in positions to be in the right spot in the right time is just insane. And so I definitely want to do a film breakdown on that and kind of go through that. Urban said, "FAMU here, so the SWAC fans don't fight us for the playoffs. Go Gators." Venables makes $2.5 million a year. That's good money. Yeah, no, he's not. I would say underappreciated was the better term there, Mr. Campbell. Yeah, because 2.5 million is great, but man, I think right now him and Dan Lanning at Georgia are by far the two best defensive coordinators in the country right now, and they're doing giant things for them. Let's see. The Clemson makes DC Brent Venables the highest pace assistant in college football. He was talking about Southeastern fans being less than diplomatic. Man, yeah, I heard the stories, man. That's ridiculous. SEC starting to like a super conference. It definitely is. Absolutely. I think Fair State, Valdosta, West Florida could be Vanderbilt, man. Listen, Vandy's got a lot of problems on the football field, man. We'll say that. Bowie State could be Vandy right now. I know Skip Bayless is super sad. Listen, Skip Bayless just looks forward to baseball season. We'll just put it that way. Let's see. Has Mills made his decision? If he's leaving, we can't lose our star wide receiver. We just lost our tight end. I haven't heard anything from Marvin Mills. I would hope he stays, man. Listen, I'm a big Marvin Mills fan, but I know he's younger. I think he was only a sophomore this year, but I think it depends on if Lincoln Riley really pushes for him to transfer. But I think there's an opportunity. But if he doesn't transfer, I think he could be one of the leaders that it could be one of the leaders in terms of that team moving forward, man. Cedric Blue, do you think the SEC will invite any more schools to join after Oklahoma and Texas? I would say, okay, if you would have asked me, Cedric, before the alliance was made, I would say yes. But after the alliance was made, no, because I think those conferences are going to stay tight because I don't know when everyone subscribed. We were such a small channel just earlier this year, but we broke down why the alliance was made and everything. And a lot of these other conferences thought the SEC was trying to become the NCAA, that they were almost monopolizing college football. And so the Pac-12, ACC, and Big Ten all said, we're not going to allow that. Like, we're gonna make a pact to almost stop the SEC from monopolizing college football. So I would imagine that they absolutely would not add any more schools, or the schools wouldn't join if they did. Because when you look at it, if the SEC added, let's say there was rumors of Clemson, Florida State, and Ohio State and Michigan were the four other schools that they were talking about adding. Man, what's the point of even having the college football playoff at that point? And on top of that, how in the world do you play in a conference like that on top of playing in a postseason? You would have at that point 20 teams in the SEC. So they'd probably go to the pod system, and you'd have to, and there'd be times where a team in the same conference wouldn't play each other for 3 years, the way the schedules would have to work out. So for me, Cedric, I think it would absolutely be too much. The only way they would add people is if they drop people, and I just don't see that happening right now. But the alliance really, in my opinion, builds a wall around SEC expansion right now, because they thought that the SEC commissioner and Greg Sankey was getting too much power and was getting power hungry, and they called it unnecessary advances on other conferences by stealing Oklahoma and Texas like he did. So I think right now the other conferences are going to block anybody else headed to the SEC right now, at least. But in the future, it absolutely could happen. Does anyone think they asked a great question, then Blue reads it and you realize it? Listen, no dumb questions here, man. We're going to treat it like a classroom. No dumb questions here, man. I do the mailbag because I know outside of really Scotty, there's no other channels that really offer a lot of people to come on here and get your college football questions, especially at all the different levels, man. Come in here, ask about P5, Group of 5, FCS, SWAC. It doesn't matter, man. So no dumb questions here, man. And we jump around here all the time. So, and everything's off the dome too. So we're trying to do our best here, man, but no dumb questions at all. Man, appreciate it, T. Definitely appreciate it. They said Marvin Mills is considering. Yeah, I don't think he's made a decision, but hopefully he stays, man. I appreciate the support, Chance. Absolutely, man. Let's see. The two teams that should go SEC are Florida State and Clemson. Um, I agree. I thought Florida State and Clemson would have been better for the SEC than Oklahoma and Texas in terms of on the field, Mr. Campbell. But in terms of market money and things like that and brand, I think the two they added were the best. But I do think Florida State could benefit from going to the SEC. I think Clemson would want to stay and run the ACC and get to the playoffs every year. This year was a down year, but I think Dabo Swinney has a program that's going to win more than not the ACC moving forward, man. Let's see. Yes, Campbell and drop Vanderbilt in South Carolina. Yeah, those would be two of the programs you would have to say that they would have to drop. Let's see. West Florida beat McNeese. McNeese came and beat our Southern. The next week we have to do better. Let's see. So what do you think the Big 12 is going to do? So Mr. Owens, right now, the Big 12 has added Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU. Those are the four teams they're going to add to replace losing Texas and Oklahoma. They've also had talks potentially about next year adding Boise State and Memphis too. So I'll kind of go back through the episode we did on this. The reason they added the programs they did, one, Cincinnati's been one of the hottest programs in the country. It's a big city market in Ohio, and right now they've been what 30. They've been like 30 and like 6 over the past few years under Luke Fickell. No reason not to add them. They added UCF due to the Florida market and also recruiting. They wanted that Orlando TV market. They wanted that Florida money. And they also wanted for these Big 12 schools to be able to go in the state of Florida and recruit Florida by promising recruits that they were going to play games in Florida. So that was the reasoning for UCF. BYU's been one of the best independent programs in the country repeatedly. They've turned out NFL talent. And so BYU also expanded the Big 12 into those Western markets as well. You get a huge school with a nice brand in BYU. And then Houston, due to them losing Texas, they get a giant brand in Houston in the TV market and also reestablish recruiting ties in Texas by adding another Texas school to replace Texas overall. And then, this idea, Mr. Owens, that the Big 12 is just going to suck after Texas and Oklahoma leave, I think is short-sighted. And let me give you why, because I'm about to have to get out of here due to another appearance on another show. But for me, I think it's short-sighted because of this. I think right now, Cincinnati's at the peak of its success, and if they can keep Luke Fickell, I think they can maintain. And I agree, they're not a powerhouse like your comment says. I see it there. They're not a powerhouse, but if Luke Fickell can stay, I absolutely think that they can stay a top 25 program. And a top 25 program is solid, and that's really and truly, Mr. Owens, what Texas has been. Barely been a top 25 program consistently. And I think Cincinnati absolutely could be that just perennial top 25 team and be in just bowl conversation every year. Now, Houston, top 25 team again this year. They've been historically successful against the Big 12 too, and they're in a big market, and they feel like bringing Houston up to the Power 5 level will help Houston recruit Texas better and improve that program, with their longevity over time. And then for me, I think UCF, you look at the Florida connections, UCF has been one of the, better group of 5 programs. I think that bringing them to the Power 5 with that money can help them turn something big. And then, of course, BYU has absolutely just been consistently playing Power 5s and competing. So they feel like bringing them up absolutely will raise the conference. But I want to give y'all something too. That conference right now, in terms of, if you took Oklahoma and Texas out of the conversation, the Big 12 would still have like 5 or 6 top 20 teams right now, with Houston, BYU being ranked, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Cincinnati. All these teams would be ranked. So for me, I think overall the Big 12 will be okay. Now, will they have the name brand of Texas or Oklahoma? No. But I still think the on-the-field football really won't suffer as much as some people would think, Mr. Owens, in my opinion. But we're going to see how it works out. Mr. Campbell said, Bluebloods is my nephew. Great content, Honorary Rattler. I appreciate it, Mr. Campbell. Listen, I will be in Tallahassee next season for one of these games, man. We'll get in touch, man, and I'll definitely be down there for a game. I need to come see what Bragg's all about, Mr. Campbell. Let's see, go down here. Not the way we're playing in Memphis this year. It's been a problem, man. Chance. Spencer's already transferred. Spencer's entered his name in the transfer portal, and Caleb said he's considering transferring, but hasn't announced anything yet. But Spencer Rattler is already out. Chance. He is in the transfer portal as of tonight. My high school stadium was bigger than both. Stadiums don't really matter. Oklahoma and Texas will never be relevant in Florida. He said, damn, Blue doing more shows than Nick Cannon, man. Listen, we busy. Underscore, I'm about to be on Frankly Speaking Sports with my guy, man. Listen, he asked me way earlier in the season if I come on every Tuesday night, talk some college football with him, man. That's my guy. Yep, definitely go check them out, man. But it'll be Frankly Speaking Sports at 8 p.m. my time, so 9 p.m. if you're on the Eastern time zone, man. It's a lot of Power 5 stuff. He doesn't really get into FCS or anything, so if you're a Power 5 guy, definitely you can go check that one out. The Florida Athlete Pipeline said the James Brown of YouTube, man. You're losing Texas, Oklahoma. I don't think they're going to suck. We'll have to give them a chance. I agree. Listen, it's going to be an adjustment, Mr. Owens, for some of these programs to compete at the Power 5 level. But I do think getting the financial benefit of being Power 5 with more TV money, more attendance revenue potentially, I think could help a lot of these programs establish themselves over a few years. But I think it's going to take a year or two to really establish themselves at that P5 level financially as well, with also facilities and things like that. Let's see. Bluebloods, take them on the set. Let's see the big 20s and 22s. Man, you're too much, Leon. Do you think OU, Oklahoma State, keep the Bedlam game like UF, FSU? I do, man. That's the one in-state rival they have. I'd be shocked if they got rid of that rivalry game, man. I do think the Bedlam rivalry stays. That's one of the best rivalries in the country. So for me, I think they're going to keep that game. Alcorn has the highest rated recruiting class in the FCS as of right now. That's interesting, Jersey. I didn't know that. I've been slacking on my recruiting just because we've been doing so many game previews and things like that. But I'll definitely have to look at that, man, and see who they got coming in and probably do a show on that. We'll need to put Blue in the student section of Brax so you can get lit with the Rattlers, man. Listen, I'll bring all the energy, man. I love to get a little crazy at football games, man. I love football, so definitely let me know, man. Let's see. Added your name to the Bama State list. Added a note to be on the lookout for an Escalade. Listen, man, I can't be on the list, man. I already have to escort Scotty through Alabama, man. He absolutely cannot go through. He can't drive down I-10, I-65, I-20 in Alabama without my escort. He's coming to Auburn. I'm taking him down 85. We're going to get him on I-10 or I-20, wherever he needs to go. Don't worry. I'll protect our guy all script, but I can't be on the list right now, man. I can't be on the list. Let's see. I'm going to take him to FSU first and ease him over the hill. He'll be like, Mr. Campbell, man, you are too much, man. You are too much. Let's see. Why would Caleb leave? He just dropped into one game and clutched up in the fourth quarter. He's just going to leave like one of the best things that happened on OU. Man, listen, it's all about a lot of the players nowadays say they commit to coaches, not the program. But man, listen, I think it depends for Caleb Chance. It also depends on if Lincoln asks him to come again, man. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, and also who they hire. That's why I think Oklahoma has to move quickly on a new head coach, or they could lose a lot more players than they already have in that case. Alcorn got Jervion Howard and Montario Hunt from Rutgers and Syracuse. That is big, man. Listen, that's big. I'm not gonna lie. Blue, what happened to the Iron Bowl victory? Oh man, listen, Urban, we don't have to bring up traumatic times, man. Listen, Saturday night, man, was a very, very tough night for me. Let's just say that I just went and like laid in the darkness after that game, man. That one hurt my soul. Like, I've experienced some really bad Iron Bowl losses, but for me, man, that one took the cake. I know we weren't expected to win, man, but that one hurt my soul. That one took years off my life, Urban. Absolutely. If you go to Tallahassee, you gotta get some Guthries, man. I'll keep that in mind, man. I'll keep that one in mind. He said Alcorn's leading because no one else has signed yet. Oh man. Yes, Jay. Listen, Alabama's Iron Bowl offensive line was atrocious. And listen, that's why I said in my preview of the SEC championship that I dropped today, I mentioned that, man, if that O-line doesn't play, Georgia is going to absolutely wreak havoc on that offensive line, man. Georgia is going to eat that off. You cannot allow 7 sacks to Auburn and then go play Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, and those guys. That Alabama O line is going to be the biggest question mark this weekend, in my opinion. He said I was crying in the car. I was, man. I wasn't in the car. I was crying on the couch, man. I was crying on the couch. What do you think of Auburn's QB overall, man? Listen, for TJ Finley to get hurt like I mean, y'all saw. I mean, y'all if y'all watched the game, he could barely walk to get under center and into the huddle, and he played the entire second half like that. Led multiple drives in that overtime to score. That pass to Landon King was a dot. And for me overall, man, listen, and I'll put it in perspective now. If you would have told me, on last Monday that we would have got to 4 overtimes with Alabama with a backup quarterback, missing our best linebacker in Owen Papo, and us only scoring 10 points, I would have taken it 1,000%, man. And really, it was promising as an Auburn fan to see Derek Mason make the defensive adjustments. And for me also to know in my heart, and y'all can disagree with me, but in my heart, I'm going to reason with it as if Auburn had a healthy Bo Nix or a healthy TJ Finley, Auburn wins that game, in my opinion. And so for me, I think overall it was a promising game for Harsin. I wish we could have pulled it out, but after the year we've had with the first year head coach, I absolutely think that was a solid game, man. Lawrence said the Iron Bowl was great. I bet it was, Lawrence. I know you rocking. I know you rocking up there in Alabama, man. He's out like him so far. Was this going to be a fire sale just like it at OU, just like it was in Tennessee? I agree with that, man. Auburn still has gas in the tank. I'm interested to see what we do in the bowl game, man. We're going to see. But Auburn had that game too. I was going to go crazy if they actually won. Don't worry, bro. Auburn will be back next year. Listen, always next year, man. Always next year to look forward to. And I'm excited. I'm just excited. Listen, as much as I'm an Auburn fan, doing this show, loving college football as much as I do, and trying to make this my career, man, I get excited just to watch like Temple Bowling Green on Tuesday nights, man. Like you can ask my family, you can ask, my girl, everything like that. Like everyone says, like I breathe college football. Like if you had to name one personality trait for me, it'd be college football. Like I watch every single thing. I mean, I watch replays of games and watch film. Like I talked to Scotty. I don't sleep on Saturday nights because I'll stay up all night watching film of games that I didn't get to watch live, man. So for me, man, I love it, man. I love college football. As bad as Auburn played this year, man, I'm just excited to watch the games this weekend. I think Baylor, Oklahoma State is going to be such an underrated game this weekend. So make sure to tune into that one. I'll be dropping we got 3 previews dropping tomorrow on conference games. It's a big week for me, man. I think healthy TJ is better than Bo Nix. I agree with that. Blue and Zach from the Black Cookout video doing a video together at JSU game next year. Oh man, I'm crying. Let's see. Alcorn not beating any top FCS, even mid-level FCS teams. Coaching his best on this episode of First 48 Alabama line. Oh, versus Georgia. I agree, man. What can Vanderbilt do to improve as a team? I can't understand why they get better recruiting, being located in a great city as Nashville. Cedric, I could put my finger on it because what I thought would happen, and I'll make this quick because I got to go in probably like 5 minutes. But for me, I thought that James Franklin laid a great foundation at Vanderbilt. I don't know if you guys remember in like the mid 2000s. I remember I was in probably like elementary school or so. Vandy was beating teams like Auburn and they were competing with the SEC. I mean, they made bowl games and they were competing in the SEC. So for me, I don't know what happened with that James Franklin foundation, but every coach that's been there has struggled in recruiting. They've struggled to keep players in the program with the transfer portal. And overall, I just think the perception of Vandy right now, Cedric, is their biggest concern. They have to get fans back in the stadium. They have to up their recruiting game, their social media presence. Right now, Vanderbilt is so far behind the SEC that you question how they ever could catch up on terms of the football field. So for me, man, I think that's like the biggest thing. Let's see. I can agree with you on Finley, Blue. Bama, what y'all think y'all were going to win? Like y'all were Southern and the Cowboys. Listen, man, I felt like a Falcons fan this weekend. Sonny Boom. I felt like a Falcons fan. Mr. Owens said, last question. What's your thoughts about Derek Hall? I think Derek Hall's potential's out the roof, Mr. Owens. I think you saw this weekend what Derek Hall absolutely could do in the biggest moments, man. 3 sacks this weekend. And I think overall he has the body, he has the speed, the athleticism. I think Derek Hall, if he sticks with it and, if he continues his development, absolutely could probably be an NFL draft pick in the future, man. I really like Derek Hall on our D line. I don't care what anybody said. Auburn played way better than Alabama. That wouldn't belong to Auburn. Listen, you should be on College Game Day replacing Corso. Big shoes to fill. Listen, man, if you got the connections, pull them for me, man. Listen, I got the degree, I got the channel. I just got to get the opportunity, man. We can do big things. I'm bringing y'all all with me, man. Trust me, I'm bringing y'all all with me. Michigan beat OSU was huge too. I agree. The Lingerie Football League. You got to tune into Michigan. Oh, listen, Chris, I watch every game, man. Listen, I watch so many games during the normal weekend. Every single conference championship game will be watched in its entirety from me. I promise. And all the previews will be out this week too. Michigan Iowa's preview will definitely be out tomorrow, man. So make sure to tune into that. What is the name of the show? Be on next. It's going to be Frankly Speaking Sports. He covers strictly Power 5 football, man. We're going to recap some games. Might have a special guest, but we're definitely going to preview all the conference championship games. Chance said, all right, question. Everyone wants to know who's your pick, who's winning, Georgia, Alabama. Me, I said Georgia. Listen, I dropped my preview, so if you watch that, you already know. So go check out the preview after this, after I get out of here. But man, I did go with Georgia in the pick. I'll let y'all watch it to see my score, but I went with Georgia in the game. I just think that D-line, man, is going to be too good. And I think if there was ever a year Kirby Smart can pull it out, it had to be this weekend. If Kirby Smart doesn't beat Bama this year, man, I don't know what to tell you. In terms of how in the world could Georgia beat Alabama if they can't do it this year? Did Vanderbilt go through some legal issues with players and coaches that they went through some off the field things that also really hurt them. Can we swap out Blue Jay Walker, man? Listen, I'm already blacklisted from like some of these schools, man. Don't get me on the blacklist with Jay Walker too, man. Don't get me on that. Wisconsin dropped the ball. Listen, they played horribly against Minnesota, man. I still don't know what happened. I'm like that with pro football. I watch every game except the Patriots. I hate that. Listen, man, I don't know what, like being raised in Alabama, I never really had a professional team. My dad was raised a Dolphins fan, so I kind of rode with him. He grew up in the Dan Marino days. So he got the good Dolphins. I got the trash Dolphins. So I guess me being a Dolphins fan really soured. For me, it really soured me on NFL football being a Dolphins fan. But in the state of Alabama, anyone who's from Mississippi or Alabama knows how it is. You got to pick your college team and go from there, man. And I think being raised in like the South Alabama, man, college football was way bigger to me than NFL football. And also, I think a lot of people can relate. We'll end on this, and then I'll close the show out. But for me, man, college football is by far the best sport out there, man, in my opinion. I mean, and I know everyone loves NFL and all that, but for me, I think, and people are going to laugh when I say this, but I think the passion of the fans, the bands, the stadiums are bigger, the crowds are louder, the crowds care more. You got the storm in the field. You have players fighting for their chance to go to the NFL. You have real rivalries that, like, I mean, people will not be friends over these rivalries. And also, for me, the people's ties to the university means so much. And I think that's what separates college football from the NFL for me, is that I graduated from Auburn, so I feel like I'm a part of that team. I feel like I'm a part of the like when I have the Auburn jerseys in the background, like I went to school there. I get like they have hundreds of thousands of my dollars to get an education. And when you go to a Jackson State game, Sonic Boom and all the Jackson State fans I have in the chat right now went to Jackson State. They pay money to Jackson State. They're in that community, and they feel a more emotional connection to the school. Mr. Campbell, Urban, these guys have been at FAMU and put their sweat and tears into the university too. And so I think that's why I think college football is so much better, man. The passion isn't the same. Like, I think all you had to do was watch the Auburn Alabama game. I think if you watch the Michigan Ohio State game with the field storming and with the crowd noise and the passion of the fans and the rivalry, man, those two examples this past weekend are wild. I don't even think it's a comparable like it's not even a comparison between NFL and college football for me. And that's why I kind of went the weird path of just covering college football on my show, because I knew my strengths, because I could tell you anything about college football there is. That's the boy wonder, or whatever, that Scotty calls me. But also, man, I just think it's so much better to watch college football, man, due to the passion and everything like that. He said I was on scholarship at FAMU, man. I transferred there. Side of Boost and I play storm the field Saturday, man. I need to see that more. I need to see more SWAC teams storm the field. I need the student section to get hype. I need everyone to storm the field, man. If Jackson State wins the SWAC title, storm the field. Listen, before I get out of here, I don't know if y'all saw Washington State fans stormed the field at Washington. They were playing their biggest rival in the Apple Cup on the road in their rival stadium, stormed the field after beating them, and the fans planted the flag at the 50-yard line. Listen, I don't know a single Washington player personally, but the fact that that happened is just berserk to me. The fact that you let them fans storm your home field and you let them plant a flag and no one did. Like, come on, man, that can't happen. And that's so disrespectful if you're a Washington State fan to storm your opponent's field and just disrespect them like that. I mean, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen in college football, is somebody storming their opponent's home field, man, and planting a flag, and the quarterback was in the middle of it, man. Listen, that's what makes college football great, though, man, I guess, because you'll never see the Patriots storm the Dolphins field, I guess, is the argument you probably can make on that one. But listen, guys, I moved up the mailbag to 6, man. I wanted to at least try to get 2 hours out of these mailbags because, I mean, y'all have been rocking with the mailbags real hard, and I definitely appreciate it. Listen, I know all you SWAC guys are not as invested in the FCS playoffs anymore now that FAMU's not there, but listen, tune in Thursday night. We're previewing the entire first round live right here on the Bluebloods, and we're going to break down and we're going to give my official predictions for round 2 and talk about, some of the recap of round 1 games and their implications on these round 2 games, man. And then also the SWAC championship preview coming out on Friday morning, 8 a.m. Central Time. We have 3 dropping tomorrow. It's all the Power 5 previews of the ACC, Big 10, and Big 12 previews dropping tomorrow for their conference championship. And we'll have the Sun Belt and AAC on Thursday as well. But make sure to tune in at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on Thursday, man. And listen, if you're interested in Power 5 football, flip over to Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm about to hop over there. But listen, subscribe, like the video if you want to become a member, man. I appreciate it. If not, man, I still appreciate y'all rocking with me, man. Either way, man, the money don't mean nothing. I just appreciate that y'all chose on Tuesday night to come listen to me talk college football, man. So I appreciate it. But until next time, guys, the Blue Bloods are out.